Who is Virgin Voyages for in 2025 and who is it not for? Making sure you make the right vacation choice for you, because all of our time is limited, is important to me, which is why I want to bring you behind the scenes in today's Virgin Voyages Tips podcast. I'm going to take you into the Virgin Voyages headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we're going to be talking to Nirmal, the CEO of Virgin Voyages. I dive into some of the top myths that prevent people from ever booking a Virgin Voyages sailing, or the people who do decide to book. I meet you guys all the time. You come on with so much anxiety, so many things you're worried about, and it's so important to me that you know what to expect so you can just dive into the good part and have a great time, because it really is an excellent vacation. And so I'm really excited to bring you in. Let's head into the office.
So excited to be here. Please introduce yourself. Tell us, who are you?
Well, welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
Nirmal. I'm the CEO of Virgin Voyages.
I'm super excited to be chatting with you today, and we are debunking some of the top myths that you guys message me about all the time and are learning about on YouTube all the time. And we are just going to kick it off immediately with one of the first ones.
Are we going hard-hitting at the beginning?
No,
no warm-up questions?
Nope, there's no warm-up at all, because we are, maybe it's risque to jump straight into the first one, which is...
Oh, I like what you did there.
Is Virgin Voyages too risque?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
So it is a question that we hear a lot, and I know that you hear a lot of this question on your channel as well. I think what happens is that people know that we are a kid-free, adult-only experience, and sometimes they have a hard time imagining what that would be, and they immediately go to, is it risque? Mm-hmm. And the reason why we are an adult-only, kid-free experience is that it allows us to create bespoke experiences for grown-ups who want to have fun. And that means we can do elevated dining experiences. It means we can do things like workout classes. It means we can do things like hammocks on balconies. And so the reason we are adult-only is that it allows us to create an elevated and sophisticated environment for grown-ups. And unfortunately, I think sometimes people read into that it means that because it's grown-ups, that it's all going to be risque themes and things like that. And the reality is it's far from that. And, I often hear this question for people, and then they sail, and they come back and they say, oh, that was great. I loved it. I love the fact that I could relax. I love the fact I could read a book on a hammock. I love the fact that there was some high energy moments where I could let loose and feel free and feel young again. And I see it all the time. I see people walk on the gangway on our ships, and I'm sure you feel the same way, and you just see them relax. There's a visible relaxation they come from the fact that there are no kids on board our ships and that they can be themselves.
And it's one misperception about being themselves. When you hear the words adults only, does that mean there's a bunch of nude people on the ship? And I want to give you an example of something I recently observed on a sailing, which I love the entertainment on Resilient Lady. And I had the opportunity to spend some time with someone who does a lot of the costuming on the ship. And one of the things I noticed in Lola's Library, a lovely show, is that even as the gentlemen are dressed in a provocative way, there's very little skin that's actually shown. And so an example would be, when I think of risque, well, first of all, nobody is nude on Virgin Voyages, although on sea days, on the perch, you are allowed to be topless, that is acceptable. But you're not seeing people walking around the ship naked. That's not the case at all, nor is the cast and the crew. And so what I think is important to know, though, is that even in choices where risque would be what you choose to wear, even the costuming in some of the shows is thoughtful in how risque it would look to people.
Look, we've always wanted to make sure that we provide people a balanced experience on board our ships. And costuming is part of how we think about the narrative of all of our shows. And so we're very thoughtful about what costuming should be, very thoughtful about the kind of experiences people have on board. But I always say to people, the danger with saying adult only means risque is that you're missing all of the things that an adult only experience can offer. Because the reality is, when you don't have kids on board, you can do things like offer great food. We're known for our food, as you know, right?
True.
But we don't have to worry about chicken nuggets. And that was actually some of the work we did even before we started the company. We did some focus groups with people, and we asked them, what would you imagine Virgin Voyages to be? And they talked about a kid-free environment. And they talked about the fact that, all the food would feel more elevated and sophisticated. You'd be able to do things that you wouldn't be able to do on other ships. And so hopefully people will focus more on those things because the reality is, it is a misperception, right?
Yeah.
People that come on our ships, everyone feels welcome, everyone feels comfortable. But I do understand and appreciate that people who are thinking about coming on a Virgin Voyage, given some of the stuff that's out there, have that perception. And a lot of people also on YouTube, there's a lot of headlines. Because headlines get clicks, right, Christine?
That is very true. Yes, that is very true.
The first time I actually met Christine in person, I actually said to her, I love your headlines. You remember?
I gotta work really hard on the headlines to make sure you guys click on them, but
the reality is,
not
actually, if you look at all those videos about us, and even some of your videos too, so sometimes, they'll say, is Virgin Voyages too risque?
Yeah.
And then you watch the video, and then the outcome will be, it's actually not.
Yeah.
But I understand why people have that perception. But look, the fact that we've won all these awards. I mean, last year we were the #1 rated cruise line. We won a Travel and Leisure Award. We won a Condé Nast Award. We've got the most 5-star reviews on TripAdvisor. What I'd say to people is, if you think about it, if you are risque, if you are too niche in how you think about the product, then you don't get that kind of mass market appeal that we have, right? Now, are we for everybody? No, right? If you do want a buffet, then you're not going to have a great time on that ship, right? If you do want announcements and a cruise director, then you're not going to have a great time on the ship. I would respectfully say to anyone that wants those things, I don't think you're going to miss a buffet when you come on board our ships. I don't think you're going to miss the cruise announcements when you come on board our ships,
That's
right?
very true.
And this is sort of the way the Virgin always thinks about life, right? We always say, what can we take about the best parts of an experience, and how can we add our Virgin twist to it? And so it's all the best parts of a cruise, but with a Virgin twist, right? And that's the simple way we thought about this business. But I do understand, I said, why people would have that perception, but I could say flat out, it is ultimately not true.
I'm curious if you have a perspective around, in the same way we're talking about Virgin Voyages is not for everyone. It's very difficult, and I've talked about this before, where everyone's risque profile is different. Your edge is different than somebody else's. It all depends on our past experiences.
Yep.
Who is Virgin Voyages not for from a risque perspective?
I don't think there's anyone we're not for from a risque perspective, to be honest with you. I do think that ultimately the simplest way to think about Virgin Voyages is that if you're traveling without kids, then you're a potential customer for Virgin Voyages.
Yeah.
So full stop, right? So anyone out there who's traveling without kids, I respectfully say you should be considering us, right? Now let's talk about why we might be the best fit for your holiday. Do you enjoy great food, right? I think we have the best food at sea. And I've seen some of your videos. I think you agree with me. I have you on tape.
I'm barely fitting in these pants right now. Let's be honest. They're also yoga pants.
If you love great food, then you're going to love Virgin Voyages, right? And we can talk a bit more about why. I mean, hopefully you'll ask me a bit about why it's great food, but there's a particular reason why the food is great and the particular way we create the food that makes it wonderful. If you're looking for something that's a bit more boutique, something with a bit more life, with a bit more energy, something that's a bit more eclectic, you're going to love Virgin Voyages. And I think a lot of travel experiences nowadays, there's a way to describe them as like upscale bland, right? They're beautiful, they're pretty, but they're a bit sterile, right? They don't have a personality. And one of the things about Virgin Voyages is that we have a personality, and we're not afraid to have a personality. This is where, again, coming back to your first question, why I think people misinterpret that personality.
Yeah.
Our crew were allowed to be themselves.
Yeah.
Our crew are trained to do their jobs. We hire them for their attitude. We train them for success, is what we say. And we say, be yourself. And I would say to you that I don't think there are many people that get on a Virgin Voyage and feel uncomfortable and feel out of place. However, I do think they feel that before they come to Virgin Voyages.
Yes.
But once they get on board,
lots of misperceptions.
Yeah, they come on
about
board and they say that was one of the most welcoming, happy places I've been, where everybody comes as they are. Everybody feels accepted.
Can we
right?
unpack that for a second?
Yeah.
Because, my mom really felt this. Am I too old? Am I not cool enough? Am I to fill in the blank with lots of misperceptions she had? And yet you're starting to talk about how the crew can be themselves, which allows them to pull you in with open arms, whether you actually do want a hug or not.
Right.
And it allows them to help people to feel welcome. What is it about Virgin Voyages that helps make it feel like such an inclusive environment? Because it really does come down to the crew really helping people to feel welcome on the ship.
I think you just nailed it. I think it's the crew. And I've thought about this a lot too, because I see people come off the gangway. As you know, when I'm on the ships, I'm walking around talking to people. I particularly love watching Embarkation and seeing people's faces as they come on board. And you've seen this too, I'm sure, right? You just see the smile, you see them relax, and you see those first interactions with our crew, and our crew are so personable, so welcoming. And I do think this environment of inclusivity on board our ships does come from the fact that it's our crew. Because we are so thoughtful about how we treat our crew, the kind of people we hire, and the freedom we give for them to be themselves. To your point, I think they do give this virtual hug out to the community of people that are sailing on that voyage with them. And it just allows people to relax. I do also think the fact that there are kids on board allows people to be themselves, because we're not on a schedule anymore. You know, if you're with your partner, as an example, you can invest time in being with the partner. If you're with a group of friends, you can invest time in being in your friends and being on your own schedule. And that is a wonderfully freeing feeling, I believe.
I'm dying to know, though, because we're talking about the crew. And I used to study culture within companies. Is it enough to just allow them to be themselves, to create that environment? Or are they specifically trained in a way that, I don't know, that they are encouraged to, or I don't know, they're taught something? Because I have very consistent, amazing experiences amongst all the crew. And I'm just like, what did they tell you back there so that you're like this? That, you know, that we are screaming like children when we see each other.
Yeah.
Like what is it
Well,
that
by the way, I love hearing the stories like that, because
the crew is the best.
I do think our crew is the secret sauce. Like fundamentally, and this whole point about the inclusive environment on board, it's the crew. And I am always just so thankful every time I walk on our ships and I look around and I think, these people choose to be here working with us to create this experience on board our ships, right? We have such talented people on these ships, whether you're an artist or an entertainer, whether you're in any of the restaurants, whether you're back of house in the engineering department, all these people are so talented they choose to be here. But we spend a lot of time on the crew experience, and you talked about culture. Culture is something that's really important to me, because I think culture is the foundation of any great business. And Richard has always had a very simple philosophy. If you actually think about Richard, and this brand has been around, Virgin has been around for 50 years now, the simple philosophy Richard has always had is you treat your people right, your customers will be happy, and your business will be thriving. Right?
Yeah.
And it just comes down to what can we do to make sure that our crew have the best possible experience. So we actually have a whole initiative around making sure our crew feel like this is the best gig they've ever had, the best job they've ever had. And it comes down to the training. We do training a lot, but a lot of it comes down to just the ability to be yourself. The ability to be seen and be heard. What a lot of crew will tell you if you talk to them is that, particularly when they've been on the cruise lines, is they don't feel seen. They feel like a number.
Yeah.
Right? Here they feel and that we care about their opinion, right? And we take care of them. And look, we take care of them not because we're looking for a business outcome. We take care of them because it's the right thing to do. So our crew get free Wi-Fi, as an example.
Yeah.
The quality of the food we give our crew rivals some of the restaurants.
I am dying to eat in the crew mess hall, by the way.
The crew kitchen table, it's actually where I eat.
I know.
There's
I really
so much
wanna
great
eat
food
there.
down there. I particularly love lots of variety of food. I'm originally Sri Lankan, so I love anything with a bit of spice. And you go down there and you've got all sorts of wonderful things down there, yeah.
Don't tell me, I'll just be jealous.
I know. You probably should be jealous, yeah. And it's all right. It's only for the crew, though. Sorry.
Understood.
Apologies.
They should be treated.
We also, do coffees and teas. We give them their uniforms. You know, we pay for their pre-employment medicals. A lot of other places, particularly cruise lines, will make them pay for all those things. So I think our crew, and I know our crew, feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel that we truly respect who they are as people. And don't underestimate what it means when you say to somebody, it's okay to be yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hospitality experiences nowadays, particularly those ones that I sort of call this upscale kind of bland environments, they try to make everything so formulaic, right? There are rules around, you have to refer to somebody as Mr. or Mrs., right? As opposed to just saying Christine. Now, on our ships, if you said, call me Christine, that's great. You might also say, call me Miss Lozada, right?
Yeah.
And then that's fine too, right? But being able to have that flexibility to
It's
bring
not
your
just that,
personality to
though.
work.
They'll remember. If
Yeah.
you come back, sailings later, months later, a year later, they remember.
Yeah.
They remember. And they remember your food preferences. It's a lot.
It makes me so proud to
I'm
hear
having
that.
like a mind blown moment that it really is just the care for the crew that's creating that. I'm curious.
And I think also one thing I'd add also is we also are very focused on the way our leaders should behave and treat our crew. So if you think about it, on our ships, our captains don't wear stripes.
I know they're impossible to find.
Yeah, well, because as a leader, I fundamentally believe that a good leader is someone who makes the people around them shine. We develop leadership models it's not about you, it's about the people around you. And you look good because the people around you are looking good, and that's reflecting on you. And so you won't see our captains with stripes. You won't hear from our captains. You won't see our captains dining in a different restaurant to our crew. We're all one team that does it together. And our leaders are taught very specifically to model the right kind of leadership behaviors that particularly comes down to this point around you're good as a leader only because of what the people around you, right? And your job is to make the people around you shine.
Powerful.
Right? And I think that's something that's fundamentally true for Virgin. It's how I think about life. And if we don't get that culture part right, then it doesn't matter, right? Yes, we can have the best food. Yes, we can have the most well-designed ships. We can go to great places, right? But the soul and that feeling you have on those ships comes from that crew. And we invest a lot of time and effort into that to make sure that we bring the right kind of experience to life on board Virgin Voyages. And that has been the secret to the success.
I love that. I know so many sailors who are longtime sailors that come back because they say, the crew, the crew, the crew. It really does make a difference.
Hey, I wanted to pop in for just a second because you're about to see a scene in which Nirmal, not actually, but kind of, walks out on me in the interview. It's quite funny. But the reason is because, and I have this new perspective because I've recently sailed, and I've sailed with lots of other cruise lines, but I recently sailed with another cruise line, and it just felt different. It felt totally different. And you can see me in this interview. I'm searching for the answer. Why? Why is the crew like this? And I would say the service I got on this other cruise line was great. It was great. It was great service. But there was no connection. And one of the things that makes Virgin Voyages feel inclusive, one of the things that makes Virgin Voyages feel more comfortable, just an environment in which people can enjoy and relax, is because everyone, including the crew, is in a comfortable state where they can be themselves and they can chat you up. They will, if you want to chat, if you want to be chatted up, and you can connect with them in a way that if you want to connect with them and they want to connect with you, you can. And it just creates a totally different dynamic that is difficult to understand until you experience it. And actually, if you're listening to this and it's helpful, please hit that like button, leave a comment. And if you have sailed before and you have a positive experience with the crew, share it in the comments below. We're all a community. It helps others to hear your perspectives as well. Let's continue with the interview because this next part is important because it's another top myth about the price point of Virgin Voyages.
Virgin Voyages is too expensive. And actually, and I already know, I'm going to be looking real closely because this is not my choice. I will be on Royal Caribbean next month. I know, right? See you, that was nice knowing you.
No, I'm glad you could be on Royal Caribbean. That's great.
I wonder how many moments I might have a potential meltdown, but I will be looking at the nickel and diming very closely and comparing my expenses versus a normal Virgin Voyages sailing. But a lot of people think it's just expensive and then won't even look into it and then immediately jump to, they won't even consider it. I'm curious what your reaction to that is.
I would ask that they look a little deeper.
Run the numbers.
Run the numbers because when we built this experience, we thought about what to include. We tend to include what I believe are kind of the voyage necessities, right? Wi-Fi nowadays, it's a basic human right. Everybody needs Wi-Fi, right? Still and sparkling water are included in all of our fares. We don't have any specialty dining upcharges that you typically get on other cruise lines. I mean, the quality of the food in our restaurants is better than specialty dining on other ships. The fact that we don't have the buffets and the big dining halls, those are things that are all part of what we do. We're very thoughtful of what we include. And what it means is that you can walk off a Virgin Voyage with a zero bill.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Because the only thing you're really paying for is alcohol, spa, retail, and shore excursions, really.
Yeah.
But that's very different to how other experiences present themselves. Because, consumer behavior is to always look for the cheapest possible price, right? And sometimes it is hard for us because we have to educate more and help people understand. Actually think about how much we're including up front and how much is it worth when you think about still and sparkling water, specialty dining, all these things included, Wi-Fi included. It can add up. and it will add up, right? And so sometimes, someone once said to me, on a Virgin voyage, you pay to get on, you don't pay to get off. And I also think it's important because a lot of the sailors who enjoy experience, they don't enjoy the nickel and diming that you're seeing in travel nowadays.
Yeah.
And I do feel like travel nowadays has really ramped up the nickel and diming element of this, right?
Yeah.
Where they're trying to charge for everything and try to tack additional fee onto everything. And a lot of consumers now, they're kind of getting fed up with that, right? They're saying, look, I want to pay a great price up front. I want to know what it's going to cost me. And I want to know it's great value for money. And that's the one thing that we always want to stand for, is value for money. So I always say to everyone, we are phenomenal value for money, but you kind of need to understand what's included.
Yeah.
But know that for all of your audience out there, we are very committed to great value for money on board. And that means we have all these inclusions. And I just ask them to run the math.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to find that if you run the math, particularly with the way we're priced right now, we are phenomenal value for money right now when you compare the cost of a Virgin voyage to a high-end hotel.
Yeah.
Or going into Miami.
When I compare the cost versus spending a weekend, even just a weekend in Miami downtown, or I was recently in Las Vegas or was in New Orleans, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much more value for money to be on Virgin Voyages. Just the amount of unexpected expenses. And now, like, even when I think about other cruise lines, especially for first-time cruisers, it's really difficult to understand how much total out-of-pocket you're going to have if you've never gone through the process before.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things in cruising that you wouldn't expect to be spending money on that is a no-brainer. Things like water. I recently sailed with somebody who is an 18-year-old sailing with their parents, lovely young adult, and he talked about having just gotten off of another cruise line, and one of the biggest stress factors for him was he was trying to help his parents save money, and he kept running his cup to the equivalent of their buffet galley to fill his water cup.
Right.
And he was like, it wasn't anywhere close to my room. And he's like, I told me the number of steps he clocked in just from running water back and forth to his room. I was like, oh wow, yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, water can add up, right? Look, what is actually, for us, what is a great story, because it's very much how Virgin approaches things. So it's a win-win. So we don't have any plastic water bottles on our ships.
Yeah.
And when we were approaching this decision, we actually came at the decision a lot more sustainability-led and kind of what the right thing for the customer is. So that we said to ourselves, it doesn't make sense that you get stressed out having to buy cases of water to bring on board.
Right.
Or to get charged a lot of money for water bottles, right? And then the other part of that was that, we do have sustainability as the core of what we do, and plastic water bottles are not great for the environment. And so we said, why are we, if we decided to charge for water, right? Why are we trying to force customers to bring water? And on top of that, why are we now encouraging plastic water bottles, right? When the right thing to do ultimately for the planet and for the customer
It's so true.
is to say, let's not do that. So we said, let's just include still and sparkling water.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we made that decision, because it's another element of why our voyages feel glamorous, right? We haven't talked about this word, but I do feel like people come on board and yes, it's kid-free, yes, it's got great food, yes, they've got great service, but I think like everyone feels glamorous, right? And it's these little touches, right? You can get sparkling water,
Yeah.
right? Not just still water, you can get your sparkling water.
Yeah.
And you don't pay for it, right? You've got 2 carafes in your room when you show up. If you want a refill of those carafes, no problem. We'll give you a full
There are things that are just included that just feel nice and upscale, but it's also going back to this kid-free environment. You can't have nice things when the kids are around, but it's the kids are not around. And also because it's an elevated experience, because a lot of people have this misperception that it's a party cruise.
Right.
And I have a very controversial opinion.
Oh yeah?
That I don't want there to be a drink package. I think it's fantastic that rock stars have their in-room bar, but I love that there is not a drink package because it helps people to not go crazy. When I go on another cruise line coming up, I know that whether I want to or not, I gotta go crazy because I gotta make it worth my money, because I have already spent $1,448 on that drink package.
Oh wow.
I don't spend that much on drinks on Virgin Voyages. I drink a lot when I'm on Virgin Voyages, but I never drink to the point where it's like, it's out of control or anything like that. And given how fun the parties are, I love that it stays an elevated adult experience without the wild booze everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually glad there isn't a drink package, because there's nothing sexy, in my opinion, or glamorous about projectile vomit. That's just my humble opinion.
I'd say I agree with you.
Do you think you guys are going to move towards drink packages? I know that you're testing Rockstar drink packages, unlimited per person per night at $95.
So we have the bar tab, as you know, right?
Yep, which went away, came back, went away, came back.
Well, it's always available for purchase, right?
Right.
Because I know you have a lot of smart travelers on your channel.
Well, it never went away, but it threatened to go away a lot.
Well, to be clear for your smart travelers,
Okay.
Because that's what you call, right? Your smart,
Oh, they're smart AF.
oh, smart.
Yeah, sorry, but yes, I call them smart travelers.
For the smart travelers, let's talk about drinks packages. Right?
Okay.
Again, what's our twist on cruising? Drinks packages are very expensive. They typically get charged additional gratuity on them, right? So this is this whole, like, what are you actually paying for it,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a number, and then you get charged the gratuity on top of them.
Yes.
Right? So the number you think it is actually not the number it ends up being. And what has to happen to deliver a drinks package is that you've got to put a lot of rules around it. So there are rules around everyone in the cabin has to buy it.
Yes.
Right? Again, I'm talking about other cruise lines. I'm not as familiar, so
There's
you
lots
can correct me
of
if I'm wrong, right?
rules around
There's
them.
rules like everyone in the cabin, how many drinks you can buy at a time.
Yep.
The
drink
kinds
amount.
the kinds of drinks you can
Yes.
get. And so when you have those kinds of offerings, you have to water things down. You have to create more batch-oriented drinks. So a lot of those drinks available tend to be, I think, from what I've seen, a lot of batch-made drinks as well. Right? Our drinks are all made-to-order, mixologist-like drinks, right? And so, we've never wanted to really embrace the drinks package because we feel like it's just something that isn't true to our experience. Instead, we do a bar tab.
Yeah.
And what the bar tab allows you to do is prepay, because some people do want to make sure they manage their budget.
Yeah.
And they want to know what my cost will be, right? So yes, a lot of your holiday essentials are included in our fares, right? So, but some people do want to make sure they can cover alcoholic drinks, but also things like coffees and juices and mocktails, right?
Right.
Because let's not face it, it's not always just about alcoholic drinks, right?
Absolutely not. There's a huge mocktail.
Yeah, we have
offering.
a wonderful mocktail,
Yeah.
low ABV offering on board our ships, right? Very popular. Our coffees are great as well. I mean, we have great baristas. I love our baristas
Yes, I agree.
on board. But we want to cover those things, right? So we have our bar tab, right? And so you can prepay, and then typically we'll give you a bonus for that, right? So if you prepay $300 a bar tab, you'll get $350 to spend, right? So
Right.
you get $350 by paying $300. So you get a
Correct.
pre-cruise discount effectively
Yeah.
for your drinks. We feel like that's a much better offering, and that's again our twist on a drinks package.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people to look at the bar tab if they want to get a drinks package.
Yeah.
look at that. But we do hear questions, and I'm sure you've seen it in your channel. People will say, "Oh, I want to think about Virgin Voyages, but they don't have a drinks package, so I don't
Yeah.
think they're right for me." And I say to them, "Well, why don't you look at the bar tab?" And actually, if you think about $350 of bar tab as an example across a 4-night sailing, it's probably going to be cheaper than a drinks package, and you're
Yeah.
going to have enough money to buy whatever drinks you want.
Exactly.
The great thing about a bar tab also is that there's no restriction. So if you do want one night, just say you're at a dinner with your partner, as an example, because we have a lot of couples on board. If you think about who's on, a lot of couples, right? If you do want to have a slightly nicer bottle of wine, you have complete flexibility to do those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're not, hampered into a $10 glass, right?
Right.
If you want to spur something nice, if you want to buy a bottle of champagne, you
Yeah.
can do those kinds of things, right?
And I actually recommend doing these things at the wake, because that
Yes.
wineless menu is fantastic.
The Wake is a very good wineless menu, actually.
Yeah. I have one more controversial
Yeah.
opinion. Actually, I have a lot of them. One of the things that I love about Virgin Voyages is they do not nickel and dime, and there's something that is included that is unlike any other cruise line, which is gratuity. Gratuity is included with your voyage fare. And what's interesting is there is a large number of sailors who don't like to be known, and we don't really talk about it, but we sometimes like to show our thanks to the crew by leaving additional gratuity. And I almost feel like it's so polarized between the people who are okay with it and not okay with it. I'm curious what your response is, because it's my money and I'm going to spend it the way I want it to, right? Like, I earned it. If I want to say thank you in that way, I feel like I have the choice to do that. What's your reaction to that?
Of course you can.
Why y'all gotta hate on me so much? We have full stop. Oh, so sweaty about that one. I can't tell you how much hate I deal with on a daily basis about that one. This one is my own misperception.
Okay.
And this is a difficult one for me to articulate because if you have not sailed since the early days, and just so we're on the same page, my first sailing with Virgin Voyages was the Valentine's Day sailing, February 2022.
Okay.
That's very early.
Scarlet Lady.
Scarlet Lady. It was in the days of we had to COVID test, we wore masks on board.
We don't like to talk about those days anymore, Christine.
We don't like to talk about those days, but it gives context as to how early I was on board. And when I was on board during that time, it was a lot of EDM music, a lot of house, a lot of electronic music. The House of Yes, and if you're not familiar with the House of Yes, just look at their Instagram for 3 seconds and you'll understand who they are. And they were a part of helping to shape the experience. They still are. Is that true?
Yeah. They're
still part of
some of the parties. Yeah.
Correct. But they
actually
were all,
helped us with a couple of the parties on board.
yes, like Heartbeat, for example.
Heartbeat, exactly.
And they are, in my opinion, very Virgin Voyages. And during that time, a lot of people know about the old entertainment of Never Sleep Alone. And things have kind of evolved over time. And and one of the things that I love, because you have pickleball on the ship, by the way, is that you guys take sailor feedback very seriously. And you guys change things so fast, which makes my videos irrelevant really fast. And I gotta make new ones as quickly as possible. But as this has evolved over time, I've noticed things where, all the music is familiar and feels very mainstream, or the way in which kind of what the House of Yes has helped to shape the entertainment and the parties has started to feel a little bit more mainstream over time. And again, you can hear it. It's hard for me to explain this difference between then and now, because for someone who is brand new to Virgin Voyages coming on board, they will be like, whoa, this is so different from other cruise lines. And if they're a first-time cruiser, what I like to call a virgin, then they'll come on board and they'll just be blown away for all the reasons of both, whoa, cruising, this is so neat, and like, whoa, this is the way Virgin Voyages does it. But for those of us who go back and have the original wearable with our name on it, etc., we're starting to feel this mainstream shift. I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
Well, I would say, I'm sorry that you're feeling that it's a mainstream shift.
I feel like you have to, though, because if you are truly listening to sailors and you're getting more people on board, you have to accommodate the things that they ask for. Pickleball, that's mainstream, right? And while that's not the best example of going mainstream and feeling generic, it's catering to more people and being palatable to more people's tastes. Sorry, I just cut you off. Okay.
No.
Go ahead, Nirmal.
Look, I think it's a great question. And first of all, I'm sorry that you and some of your channel might feel that way. Look, the reality is, we react to feedback a lot. To your point, right? And I've seen you on your channel sometimes say they're making my head spin. They're changing too many things.
So fast.
No, but the good thing is you get to make more videos.
I have a new monthly video. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm like, maybe it needs to be either a weekly or a daily or hourly.
Just to keep up with us?
Yeah, seriously, things change so fast. Like, oh, that's different again.
Look, we are a brand that is always open to feedback. We talked a bit earlier about some of these hallmarks of Virgin, and particularly Richard about culture. Richard also has a very big focus on feedback, right? You cannot be afraid of feedback, and you shouldn't be afraid to try things and them not working out. Now, one of the things we've heard, though, from our loyal sailors in particular, is that they wanted more variety, right? Because they said, I'm sailing so much. There's only so many times I can have the same menu in a restaurant. Or only so many times I can go see Around the World with the Diva, right? Only so many times I'm going to see Dual Reality. So can you offer some more variety into the picture? And so what we've been trying to do is to offer more of that variety, some more choices. And I do think sometimes it's misinterpreted as we're trying to shy away from the brand that we are, right? This brand will always have a personality. This brand will always be eclectic. This brand will always have a point of view. Our crew will always be the special people that they are, who
Yeah.
are allowed to be themselves and bring their personalities to work. None of that is changing. What we are doing, though, is layering in more variety. Because, as we talked about earlier, what we've heard is that people have different moods on ships, right? Sometimes they want high energy. Sometimes they want something a bit more relaxing. And we heard a lot of feedback that people wanted a lot more things like live music. They wanted a lot more things like comedy. And so we're actually just layering those in now based on the sailor feedback.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think sometimes maybe it is being misperceived as we're trying to change who we are, trying to shy away from who we are. The essence of who we are as a brand is the same, right? Look, let's talk about entertainment. You asked about entertainment. You know, we are a brand that has chosen not to license shows.
Yeah. It's a hard choice.
And it's a hard choice because the easy road is to license things as work. And I would argue that being a bit more generic, a bit more mainstream is licensing shows, right? Because that's the easy choice. That's a simple thing you can do. We don't license any of our shows, right? We challenge our team to push the envelope, to create things, and we're okay with things that have been created not working out, right? That's part of who we are. That's our DNA. And so I think as you see the product continue to mature, as more and more people come on board, we want everyone to feel that special feeling that you have on board our ships. But we also want to make sure that we are evolving and adding more variety and more choice.
Yeah.
But I too take the point that we have to be careful that we don't alienate people that have come to love the product for particular reasons, right? Are we going to have the best food at sea? Absolutely, right? Nothing's changing that, right? Are we going to offer more variety and entertainment? Absolutely, because that's what we've been asked to do, right? It doesn't mean, though, that we are afraid of certain types of entertainment or certain themes, right? It just means we're offering more variety because there are highs and lows on a voyage.
I'm curious about a comment that was made, though, because I know a lot of the smart travelers have watched We're All Hungry for Brilliant Lady information.
Yes.
And you put out a lovely video with Nathan and Richard, head of entertainment. And one of the things he talked about where I wasn't sure how I felt about what he said, because I know Untitled is going to go away, but I feel like a lot of people just didn't understand Untitled.
Oh.
It was just so kind of out there and unfamiliar. And the comment that Richard made was about how the new entertainment, which is very focused from all of the sailor feedback that came out, it will feel familiar to everybody. And when I heard that comment, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Because I was like, if it's familiar to everybody, you know, because I don't know, I'm curious your reaction to this, because I have my hesitations about, you know, I don't hear it's familiar for everybody, and I'm like, yay! I'm like, oh no, like one of the things I love about Untitled is just how wild and out there it is. Yet, in my opinion, what a beautiful story Untitled is.
Yes.
Entertainment being familiar to everyone.
So when people experience entertainment on Brilliant Lady, I don't think the feedback's going to be, it's familiar. I can guarantee you that. Everything we do here has our Virgin twist on it.
Yeah.
And so I'd say to people, just you wait to see Brilliant, you're not going to be disappointed because we put our Virgin twist on everything we do.
Yeah.
The idea of familiar, it's maybe again, it's a too loaded a word, right? You know, we tend to play on things like nostalgia and familiar music as an example in what we do. So sometimes you notice in our shows, it's remakes of things you understand and can relate to, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's dual reality with a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, right? Whether it's Persephone with the unbelievable production value of that show, but the music track of that show is songs that you know and imagine that you are connecting to in a different way.
Yeah,
right?
and even on the festival stage with the magnet scene a cappella, my mom was literally in tears being brought back to the old days of listening to her favorite tunes, but with this modern Virgin twist on it.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I would just say to people, it's always going to have a Virgin twist on it, right? And so I would not take the word familiar and take it to a place of being generic or vanilla or kind of watering things down, right?
Yeah.
It's the idea that it's all the things you've expected from us with our twist on it, right? And we're going to continue to push the envelope. Look, there's a lot of very passionate people in this building, including Richard, who, you would have seen the entertainment reveal video, and I said, I gave Richard a lot of credit because we said to him, you don't get to license a show.
Yeah, it's hard.
You got to create them.
Yeah, it's really hard.
And this team of people and the crew that are on board our ships, they're very passionate about the fact that we do things a bit differently, right? That we are putting our own Virgin twist on cruising. And I would actually argue that the twist we're putting on cruising is actually something that makes it more appealing to a broader base of people, not a smaller base of people. Because let's think about even destinations, right? We stay in port for longer. And there's a lot of people who've never taken a cruise before who say, I'd love going on a cruise, but I don't want to go from 9 to 5, right? In our Mediterranean itineraries, we're in Ibiza overnight, we're in a Mykonos overnight.
And that's actually a top myth that a lot of people think, is that every single sailing with Virgin Voyages is just being at port for a few hours, and that's not the case.
No.
It simply means that you need to look beyond the sailings that are typical, because you'll find some overnight stays, some really unique sailings. Maybe it's on me to highlight those sailings for people.
Yeah, late stays and overnights are a core part of what we do.
Right.
Right, that's a key. So I would argue that the way that we are evolving the product will actually expand the number of people that would be interested in Virgin Voyages, but in a way that retains the essence of what makes us special. Right? Our crew, our food, these boutique, eclectic environments we create on board our ships, the fact that you've got highs and lows and it's not an upscale, bland, monotone environment.
Yeah.
These are things that people love about us. And we're very committed to that because that's what's made us famous. And that's why we won all these awards. Now, you don't win all these awards by being bland or generic, right? Distinction is actually something that people are looking for. People are looking for curated experiences.
Yeah.
Right? We're not looking to go to vanilla experiences. We're looking for more personalized, individual, curated experiences, and that's what you get on board our ships.
It's true.
And that's what's made them special.
Then I'm going to do what I always ask everyone who watches my channel, which is to go into this with an open mind. So as I'm very excited to be on Brilliant Lady in September for the New York Mermaid Inn.
Oh, lovely.
And as I go on another cruise line in a couple weeks, I will keep an open mind.
I nearly walked out on you already on that one.
My nephew is not of age.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
You know what? I'm good with this. I'm very sorry for walking out on you before on this. I didn't have full information.
He is the reason why.
That's fine.
The reason why.
Your nephew deserves to cruise.
I did consider.
And when he's 18, make sure you bring in a Virgin Voyages.
I mean, he has a great fake ID, but I'm like, this is not the time nor the place for that. It's not. It's really not. He is quite cute, though. Okay, so I am going to keep an open mind on this one.
If you've made it to the end, I'm going to share a story now that I'm host that experience on Royal Caribbean that really paints a picture of how you start a voyage on Virgin Voyages and how you start your cruise on Royal Caribbean. Because I was having a moment of, I haven't had really ever in life an anxiety attack until last week on Royal Caribbean. And it was during their celebrational start to the voyage. On Virgin Voyages, you start your celebration by raising a glass of, again, value for money, included bubbles, in which you have just met all of your happenings cast, your cruise directors. They are all present. You have the hostess and the diva leading this party. You have live music going with the DJ. Everyone is gathered around the pool area and you're raising a glass together and celebrating this moment. And it's fun, it's exciting, and it ends in, everyone optional dancing or enjoying the music and the happenings cast, drawing people in and entertaining people, saying hello, introducing themselves. Like, it's just this nice environment in which everyone is together and you feel like you're together. And I contrast this to the start of the Icon of the Seas, in which when I first came on board, I looked up and I was like, whoa, are those balloons? And I did further research and they are biodegradable balloons, but the start of your sailing is a balloon drop. And they do this whole countdown of a balloon drop. And I just want you to imagine this for a second. Icon of the Seas is 7,600 passengers. Virgin Voyages, all the ships are the same size, 2,770 passengers. At the beginning of this event, we had 97% capacity. There were 7,334. I love geeking out on numbers. People on this sailing. Obviously, not everyone was there, but a lot of people. It was so packed out that I was all the way at the end. This was done in a very large space in the main kind of like atrium area of Icon of the Seas. And they have all the balloons ready to be released and dropped onto all of the sailors. And so they have the countdown, and I'm starting to edge even further away from the crowd, because I realize when the balloons drop, the kids will go wild and they're going to start popping the balloons. Which, if you are a kid, this is like heaven. This would be amazing. This is like your parents opening the Amazon box and you get the bubble wrap and you get to jump and stomp all over it and it's amazing and you're screaming, except this is the start of a vacation. And what happens is the balloons drop and it sounds like a war zone. It sounds like a war zone. There's screaming, there's balloons popping, like thousands of balloons. I had an anxiety attack. I ran out of there. If you're listening to this story and you're like, that sounds amazing, then like, boom, thumbs up for you. And that's why, right? Virgin Voyages is not for everyone. And Royal Caribbean is also. It's not for everyone. It's no longer for me. It used to be for me. And I have since grown up and changed. This has been another episode of Virgin Voyages Tips Podcast. If it was helpful, please share it with somebody. And we want you to book your sailing with us. We'd love to help you set sail because we're here for you every step of the way. A reminder to check the show notes. Things on Virgin Voyages changes all the time, and you'll find more helpful links and resources in the description. We'll see you in the next episode.